Good morning, everybody. I think most people who are in the waiting room have come in. I see 24 people have joined us so far. Welcome, everybody. Delighted to see you. Clearly, this is a topic that is engaging all of us at this time. And just to remind you that this is part of the second of three topics. The first one, Petra spoke to us, trying to get us a little closer to what's actually happening with AI. But that's such a moving target right now, as I'm sure you're aware, with new developments happening at a very rapid pace. The session today, I've asked William Rodgers to talk to us about how the learning environment is likely to change, and how, starting with thinking about from the learner's point of view and what they might be doing with AI. William and I have worked together for many years. We both were partners and directors in skills development providing the insurance and finance sector. So he comes with a long pedigree of understanding how learning works, particularly in the skills environment. But I'll ask William to talk a little bit more about it. Just a reminder of our rules of the game. Please do engage with William. Use the chat box to put any questions or comments to William. I will then draw his attention to them when it seems an appropriate time. So your mics and your cameras will be switched off during the event, but it's intended to be interactive. So please do raise questions. I'll also raise them, but the more you raise questions, the more likely that you'll get a better understanding of what the issues at hand are. So William, without saying any more, can I hand over to you? You want to share your screen, maybe say a few words about where you come from, and then I will sit into the background.
Many thanks, Andy, and welcome to everybody for this morning. Yeah, thanks, Andy. Yeah, as you said, we've been working in the skill development industry for now, 21 years. We both came off that original platform when we came out, when the skills development providers were initially established 2002, if I recall correctly, and ran the SDPs, providing legacy qualifications and now the QCTO qualifications to the market. So from my perspective, I've been involved in many of these. I was also the project manager rolling out the first QCTO qualification within the insurance industry. Really ran successfully, a lot of effort and learned a lot. And now we're pretty much faced with dealing with the introduction, transformation, the disruption perhaps of AI technologies and how we're going to cope with this. It's not that AI hasn't been around for a long time. AI has been around for a long time. It goes back to the punch card technologies. It goes back to all the stuff early 20th century. AI has actually been around. But what has been the major change recently in the last 18 months is the introduction of the chatbots, and it's made it so much more accessible. So let's start with the presentation per se. Give me a moment just to swap through to my slides. And we can then continue. So there we go. You should all be able to see everything, Andy.
Yeah, go ahead. All there.
Thank you very much. So we basically, a large part of this presentation is looking at the changing role of facilitation, changing role of facilitators. And obviously, everything that we're looking at the moment is very subjective. We don't 100% know where we're going. We don't have a futuristic view, although we have a very good educated guess in terms of where we're going. So this is a very much a subjective topic, and everything we're suggesting, we're trying to keep it middle line and so forth. I think it's quite important that you guys get an overview of some of the language that we may be using, and just get an open introduction. We have what we call the LLMs, or the machine learning technology, machine learning or large language modeling, as we actually know it, things like GPT-3, and not chatbots, funny enough, OpenAI, technology developed by OpenAI. We've got BERT, that's developed by Google. We then introduce artificial intelligence, which actually uses the large language modeling technology and comes up with something like ChatGPT. So there is actually a difference. The artificial intelligence is really now trying to mimic human behavior to do bits and pieces. Okay, we've got the NLPs. Those are this type of technology, natural learning processes, such as sentiment analysis, text recognition, things like language translation. So your Google translators, all that kind of thing from an NLP technology. We also have computer vision. This is your facial recognition technology, image generation such as Bing, create image, and so forth. And then finally, we have the word of an algorithm, which is very much a binary search, not in one search, basis on the predictive technology that we think. So just an interesting fact in this presentation, I've used Bing Image Creator to do all the graphics. Okay, so all the graphics you're seeing in this presentation are generated by Bing AI, Bing Image Creator, and they are original graphics in terms of the bits and pieces. So you get an understanding of what this type of technology is able to do just by having a look at these graphics, and that would be the computer vision type of technology from that perspective. Have we used ChatGPT to guide us? In certain instances, yes. Okay, we are using the free version, in fact, to actually give us. So let's take a look at what we already know in terms of where we are. So it's kind of like positioning where we have and where we are already. Okay, we have the natural language techniques, as we spoke about now, the NLPs. We have adaptive learning platforms. A lot of our LMSs are already going towards this type of thing. So, and those are becoming hugely useful in shortcutting a lot of the administrative requirements within education in the workplace. We have automated content generation and content recognition systems, ChatGPT, BART, one of those types of things. The problem with them, you need to understand technology and you need access to those technologies. Intelligent tutoring services, personalized learning feedback, personalized learning paths, chatbots, virtual assistants, you see those in the banks already. Data analysis insights are very important in terms of going as an educator. And then obviously we've got simulation and graphic and gamification. All right, so what exactly are we looking at? So what is changing using the artificial intelligence in education at the moment? And the question is, it's about context. Okay, we got to ask ourselves, what makes our education systems, what components, what concepts make our education systems work, and how can the AI actually add value to those? And when you understand that question, you can do your search for the new knowledge. All right, so it's very important that we understand we are in a transitional phase, although we seem to always be in a transitional phase, but there has been this abrupt transformation in the last 18 months. Okay, and we're tending to look to reinvent ourselves now, using the AI technology, bringing it into the workplace, and thus we're in the search phase of this transformation. So we got to ask ourselves, where are we looking at? Are we moving from a current position of human facilitation to an ultimate side of the other side of the continuum, being a machine facilitator scenario? We don't believe we are going to move the whole way. But we do believe that human facilitation has got to a point where it's much closer to machine facilitation, and that gap is going to close. Okay, it's a yes and a no answer. It's going to be complex, and we understand that it's going to be a long journey. But it's going to largely depend on the context in which we are actually dealing with in terms of
William,
education.
you,
Yeah, Andy.
you want to expand a little bit on why you say context? What do you mean by context? Why will it vary?
All right. So, Andy, let's take my next slide and let's jump across that, and I'll explain
Okay.
it in that. Okay. So, what do we mean by context? Okay. We have interaction with AI on many platforms, and it's going to largely depend your base of where you're working from. So, for example, we have the virtual assistants. We've seen these being used in banks, and we've seen these being used in customer care already. We also see them in our households: Siri, Google, Alexa. Okay, they are able to be asked and perform simple tasks. So we may have the context of a home scenario. We may have a context of a customer care scenario, banking, etc. We're able to do simple tasks in our home. We can ask questions, we can set reminders, we can play music, we can ask the technology to dial a number already. So we are already hugely interacting with AI at this moment. Other contexts, perhaps we see our business operations and analytics. Okay, the AI as a facilitator in business operations. In other words, we are following a computer system from step A to step B to step C. Okay, we're seeing automation of tasks and workflows, and a lot of it, I mean, both Andy and I come in from the financial services sector, so we are seeing a lot of automation in these bits and pieces. For example, okay, an insurance underwriter is starting to die down because the algorithm that runs through the risk in an insurance application is getting stronger and stronger in terms of how the risk is being measured, and thus we're able to provide decent policies to a person in relation to their risk. And that's all algorithm driven now. Okay, very much, and this is quite an interesting next point, is that the data driven insights. So as we work with learner management systems, LMSs, and we do a constant recording of learners' marks, where they're going wrong, mentor input, etc. This becomes a huge database, and we're able to get a lot more analytical data out of that, allowing us to personalize training towards that particular individual. Obviously, some people are going to still be doing hard copies and trying to analyze it themselves, but there are some very sophisticated LMSs out there already that are able to do this.
So William, my question is this. What I'm hearing you say is it's context driven. You've given some examples of context where people are already using AI to support what they're doing. So they are in specific areas. Correct. Are you suggesting that it's unlikely you're going to get some sort of universal AI that is everything to everyone? Is that what you mean by context?
There will be very strong generic AIs, Andy, and we're already seeing this. But the way they are applied is going to be context driven. Okay, so for example, a chatbot in the home office is very different to a chatbot that is going to be applied in a banking or an insurance sector or a customer services sector. The technology is essentially the same. It's based off large language models and the transformative adaptations of that. But it's going to be context in terms of how we use it is going to be different in each scenario. I hope that answers your question, Andy.
So, not really. I mean, what I'm very aware of is that currently people who are trying to learn something already use Google search to go, or YouTube videos or whatever, to go and find out a whole lot about it, which already makes the role of the old style technical trainer largely redundant, because you can say to an AI, I need to know about this topic. Tell me what are the key issues that are in this topic. Then you can delve down into each of those issues and say, please give me more information about this topic. What do I need to know? What do I need to be able to do? And the AI will generate information that you can then digest. So that's starting to really nibble away at what the All-Style technical trainer does.
Quite correct.
So,
and this is the challenge of a ChatGPT scenario where it has so much access to so much information, and it breaks it down in a very logical manner so that you can read that information and continue and ask questions to elaborate on each of those points. So yes, that technology is already here. ChatGPT.
So then my question
is,
is this the fact that there are different types of AIs around that focus on different tasks, and therefore there are things that a particular one won't do. Is that, do you think, a transitional thing? And in the long run, we will get a universal AI, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, so at this moment, we're not going to get a one-size-fits-all scenario. I think a large part of our AI technologies is going to be focused on different elements. ChatGPT for knowledge, for example. Learner management systems speak to the management of learners and the learning pathways, learning journeys that they follow. We are going to have a look at being image creator, produces images for us in context of a scenario that you give to that particular thing. So there's going to be a lot of bits and pieces that we're going to puzzle together, a lot of tools in our toolbox as such. But is there a large universal thing? Yes. And I'm going to contradict myself because I just had a thought in terms of it is coming down to this, the adaptive technologies, the large language modeling systems, the the GPT system example, that is providing us with access to these different artificial intelligences that rely on the backbone of the LLMs.
Sorry, William, you've got 13 minutes still left.
All right, thank you very much, Andy. Right, so let's carry on. We believe that it's going to eventually get to a position where we're going to have a coexistence of humans and AI technologies. The AI is going to allow us very much a personalization and individualization methodology. There's going to be automation of learning tasks. We're going to have additional accessible content. From a human facilitator's perspective, we're going to be the guide towards the new knowledge. Okay, we don't know what we don't know. Okay, so we always have to have somebody pointing us in a direction. We have to have that guide. We have to have that mentor. Mentoring, obviously, in the workplace is obviously going to be very important as we guide people to develop and learn particular workplace skills. We're going to be using AI to remove repetitive tasks, marking of assessments. That all becomes AI driven in that. Okay, we have a responsibility as a facilitator now to foster critical thought, and also to show our learners how to identify bias within the AIs and quite often at the moment incorrect information. Okay, and lastly, we're introducing the social stuff, the supporting and collaborative and learning environment. Not that we don't as facilitators already, but we're going to have to provide a lot more thought into that because it's going to be a coexistence component where we use both AI and the human facilitators to internalize knowledge. Going forward, there's always this social and emotional learning question, all right? And as human beings, we can't, and especially at this moment, although I do believe that technology is moving rapidly towards emotional understanding at the moment, we have to still be in a position to cultivate the social and emotional skills of a learner. We need to develop the soft skills, collaborative, resolve conflicts, fostering relationships, emotional support, and very much moving towards, as I've already mentioned, that mentoring position at this moment in time. I think a large part of our responsibility is also going to be teaching, not teaching, but facilitating digital citizenship and digital literacy skills. We are moving into this market. There's no way beyond this. All right. We still have and the responsibility as educators to foster the communication within our learners, how to deal with communication in the workplace. AI is not going to do that for us. Okay. Yes, they can provide the knowledge, but communication is a social end. As I've mentioned, the critical analysis of AI transfer information, the learning and understanding of the teaching learners to critique AI bias. Okay, literacy skills in terms of navigation of the AI. Take, for example, a learner in your environment where he comes in from a rural setting, he doesn't have access to that technology. So there's a large responsibility from our perspective in teaching them how to use a computer, how to get access. And there are going to be many learners who live in environments where they don't have access at the moment in their work and in transformation requirements that we need to do. Okay, we're going to be agents that enhance the learning experience and streamline these classroom processes. I've been an educator for 20 years. I've never seen a classroom that teaches itself. So there's that you need to be there. Yes, people can be intuitive learning and so forth, but people need to guide them. Okay, and lastly, we need to very much be creators of interactive and responsive learning techniques and learning environments. So what we do see, all right, is already there is a shifting mode in the content delivery. All right, and perhaps these 3 pointers are my message within this presentation. Yes, AI is going to take over the delivery of content or the search for content, okay? Because it just has so much larger abilities, so much bigger abilities than we have at the moment as facilitators. We as a facilitator are going to play that coexistence role in developing some of the higher order thinking skills, the multitasking, the multi-application applicable logic that occurs within a AI environment. And one of the critiques of AI at this moment, especially ChatGPT, is it doesn't have the it doesn't have the ability to do multi-applicational logic at the moment. So if you give ChatGPT a prompt and it gives you an answer and it says, dig into that, now bring in another set of logic, it tends to move further and further away from the correct answer that you're looking for at the moment. So this is really one of the major downfalls of ChatGPT at the moment, or AI technology in that respect. We're going to have to concentrate on centering our learner in a learner-centered approach. So again, a lot of the stuff is going to be, and this is not new, this goes back 20 years already, learner-centered approaches, allowing the learners to discover the knowledge. But again, there's a lot of parameters and disciplines that we need to fulfill. And lastly, we have to be very, very cautious of how we're going to apply this in the real world technologies in your workplace. Okay, we're going to have to have thoughts around mentoring. We're going to have to develop our workplaces around the mentoring context, the discussion, the collaboration, the demonstration of real workplace skills. And I've put up a thing, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, complex reasoning. Is the AI technology already there? Yes, it is. Okay. If you contextualize what you're speaking to, for example, ChatGPT, it will give you those skills. All right? but you have to have the understanding of what to ask. And this is where the facilitator is going to play that mentoring or that facilitation role of internalizing knowledge.
William, can I just check my understanding? So what I'm hearing you saying, if I conceptualize what facilitators do, there's the very technical training, which is largely about knowledge and giving knowledge and
delivery of knowledge, yeah.
And the other end of that spectrum is people who are doing pure facilitation. For example, people who are facilitating a team building. So it could be a learning experience. There's a range there.
What we call our soft skills, and yeah.
Is that the shift moves all the way towards the pure facilitation role, the one thing. The second thing I'm hearing is that in terms of facilitating, it's really, the AI is going to do more and more to expose people to information, but somebody needs to help learners review what the AI is suggesting from a critical point of view, apply their minds to it, try and determine if it is skewed in some sort of direction or if it's incorrect in some sort of direction. And so learners need to do that, and they need a support in doing that.
Correct. And what is quite interesting is that learners have always had access to this huge amount of learning content. You think back encyclopedias, Google, etc., but nobody steers these learners like a facilitator does. So even though we have access to this huge amount of knowledge, and ChatGPT is going to that, we still need to define how our learners learn, and secondly, and instill a discipline of making them sit down and actually focus on it. So there is still that in play at the moment. Yeah.
Question from Jonathan Brawns, devil's advocate, why will learners need facilitators in the future?
It goes back to that social, emotional thing. So you can't assume that learners are going to learn on their own. I think that's very important. Right? Somebody needs to be there, working with them, steering with them, mentoring them. Okay. Take your workplace skills environment. Okay. Somebody actually needs to show the guys how to use a machine. Will a robot be able to do that in the future? One thinks maybe, all right? And I don't think that's that far off, actually. But it's unlikely that someone shows you how to turn a lever unless a mentor is there. And that's a facilitation role. So again, it comes really much back down to the context that we're dealing in. If we're dealing in a pure academic learning environment where people are there sucking up knowledge, perhaps the AI is going to be very much more available to them. But in a workplace role, facilitation, mentoring is still going to be very powerful.
That's a very interesting thought. I mean, it really says people who are involved with the workplace, there's a stronger need for facilitators there. But people who are working in tertiary education, maybe they might feel the most under threat.
Perhaps so. And again, we don't know how it's going to transform ourselves. And I mean, think of 5 years ago, where were we? All right, we didn't even know about ChatGPT, large language models. 5 years time, we may not know what the technology. We don't know what the technology looks like at this moment. We do know that it's going to develop largely in terms of the emotional learning. It's going to largely develop in terms of socialization. Those are the stories we're hearing at the moment.
You've got 2 minutes left, and there's a last comment from Jonathan about what if AI becomes mentor-oriented? Mentor-orientated.
Yeah, and I would imagine there's going to be some technology that will offer the mentor technology in terms of workplace, but workplaces are very unique. Okay, and entrepreneurial skills, right? AI is a responsive technology, right? A transformative, but also a responsive technology. Entrepreneurs, right, create new knowledge based on their learning experiences. Okay. Yes, the ChatGPTs are showing that we can develop business models around that, but there's no implementation. It takes people to implement entrepreneurial skills, right? And around that, the creation of new knowledge, the creation of new things. So are we likely to see mentorship models in terms of where we're going with that? Yes, but generic. Okay, each workplace is going to be different. and it requires people to understand that workplace. And this is what makes us human.
We're out of time.
Thanks,
So,
Andy.
colleagues, I see Angelica's posted the link for the CPD points in the chat box. Please use them. William, just to say thank you very much. I think this has been very interesting. Couple of nice comments. John Arneson, great talk, simplification of a complex topic. Appreciate the balance and the lack of doomsday prediction. And Sonette Duval, yes, that is the thing. Workplaces differ so much. Colleagues, we need to wrap on 10 o'clock. Thank you all for joining us. Please don't forget the next session where we will look at what's changing in the assessment role. That's scheduled, I think it's in August. And William, thank you for what you've done today. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye then.
Bye.